Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka Mono Bluetron, back again with another episode of 10-Minute Testing. Woof. Well, here we are. I mean, I know I've only been at this for a year and change, but I bet if I keep it up for a decade, I'll still be talking about Dante and his boys in 2027. After a string of top finishes, I figured it was time for me to take a look at a deck that, God, I don't think I've played in years, and check out some of the cuter tech options. So here's the list. Now, as you might immediately recognize, there sure are a lot of monsters in here, especially ones that aren't on fire. Well, don't worry, as always, I'll give you a little background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and as always, the card by card. So first, for those of you who don't know, Burning Abyss is an archetype with longevity like no other. Since the release of its first members, the deck has almost always been competitive, famously putting up completely unreal showings at 2 consecutive NAWCQs. Now, it's hard to put into words exactly why it's so powerful, but it probably has something to do with the fact that all of their monsters get beneficial effects when they go to the graveyard, most of them float, and their boss monster allows for completely bonkers interactions on your opponent's turn. Now, the deck's been through several different iterations, Traps and Backjack, Kaiju, Phantom Knights, but a lot of its power has always been concentrated in its monster's ease of summoning, which facilitates 7,500 plus life point swings. Master Rule 4 put a swift end to these, and most players, alongside a ban list, claimed the deck was dead. Until now. While one Dante isn't nearly as formidable as it was 8 formats ago, it's still the gummy, frustrating deck that it's always been. And despite the fact that their associated Link monster has not yet come out, their flexibility and resilience to common hand trap lineups has allowed them to slip into top 8s nationwide once again. We're playing a build today that explores some of the cuter tech decisions. Cards like Galaxy Worm are new additions to a rank 3 lineup, filling up the hole in our hearts where Terratop used to be, and the semi-BLS in order to push for damage and out big monsters might just get the job done. As BA is wont to do, we intend to summon a Beatrice turn 1, then use our turn 2 to search powerful Link and Xyz enablers, snag Kaiju from our main deck, and try, albeit it's a little harder, to create enormous boards for OTKs. So, now let's get on to the card by card. First, the one of Abyssmen. We're playing 1 copy of Seer and 1 copy of Graph. God, I wish we could play more. May they rest in peace. 1 copy of Cowcab to bounce set cards at end step with my B. 1 Libic because we've got a lot of non-BAs. 1 Alec because it's high-key way less useful than before. 1 Rubik to make synchros. Next, we have 2 Barbars. I like 2 since I love looping them like 9 times for lethal. 3 Farfa, the critical interactive send-off Beatrice, and the sole survivor of the limited list of good Burning Abysses, Skarm. After that, we've got the BA Lights, 3 copies of Fiendish Rhino, which evens out those Beatrice boards, and 1 Tour Guide. We're playing 2 Blackluster, though that could very easily be 2 too many. Next are 3 Galaxy Worm, a level 3 that specials a Galaxy Worm from deck, basically doing its best to be Tour Guide. After that is a small Kaiju Engine, 1 Gamciel, 1 Dagoran, and 1 Kumungus, followed by 3 Ash, 3 Ogre, and a Max C. We're only playing spells, 3 Board Wipes, a Foolish, and 3 Cosmic. In the extra, we've got Purple Dante, White Dante, both halves of Corbage, Beatrice, Downard, Acid, Nightmare Shark, Breaksword, Grampulse, Engineer, 3 Dante, and, I don't know, Decode, I guess. This is a Link Light build of the deck, and I'll talk about different options at the end. So, with that, let's jump into the games. So our first match is up against Metaphys Invoked, a deck that I really hope becomes meta because at the very least it'll make playing Trickstar a lot more interesting. We've opened very well. We have a copy of Seer and a copy of Farfa. We can't make Beatrice, but we do have a Ghost Ogre, so we do have some form of interaction. We'll start by normaling Seer, especially in Farfa, making Dante, hitting 3, trying to hit that Skarm. We don't, but we do hit a Barbar, so we'll bring that back with Seer. Just really want the Seer engraved for the Dante Seer loop forever. Our opponent's going to start by using this Terraforming to give themselves the Metaphys field spell, then trading in one of their Metaphys cards. Gold Sarkic Necroface, hitting a couple in Banished Zone. Using Ragnarok's effect, I figured this is one of the few Ghost Ogre targets, so I'll go ahead and use it here. They're going to set to the field spell and pass. In standby, they're going to use Daedalus, then Waterfall of Dragon Souls to get a Tyrant Dragon to hand. Afterwards, they're going to use Nephthys' effect to get another Worm to their hand. We're going to use Dante's effect to mill 3. We hit a couple of good guys, including a Rhino Warrior and a Graph. He's going to chain the Waterfall, which draws him 3 cards. We're going to get a Barbar to our side of the field, which is going to push for damage. Unfortunately, we still need more than 2 Barbar activations, so this Beatrice isn't going to be able to do it. We're going to go ahead and use the effect of Farfa because it's not really important for us to have Beatrice up on our opponent's turn. All I've seen so far is Metaphys, and they really don't do anything until our standby phase. So I think I just prefer to have Beatrice in a main monster zone. Our opponent's going to start by using Tyrant Dragon as special Daedalus and banishing our Beatrice. That's pretty bad. Then going into Alistair the Invoker, using Invocation to banish our Dante and going into Makaba. So now we're in a bit of a pickle. They're going to Reasoning. I'm going to pick 4 for Alistair, I suppose, or Ragnarok. They get an Ash Blossom or Joyous Spring and then attack us for 25 and 26. 6. So thankfully they're at 12, so we still have a lot of reach. We're going to go ahead and tribute over that Mechaba with a Kaiju, then use Kaiju Slumber. Now we might style on him a little bit. We'll use Tour Guide to get a Fiendish Rhino Warrior, attack for 600, and then 1,000 from Tour Guide. So a little less convincing game one than I would have hoped. Our second match is up against Blue Eyes with a little bit of a rocket engine. I hope that this becomes the dominant build of Blue Eyes in the future because it's super cool. Blue Eyes historically is not a particularly good matchup for Burning Abyss for two reasons. Firstly, the ban list that neutered Burning Abyss hit right before Blue Eyes was released, so they didn't have the tools to compete. And secondly, because Burning Abyss has always had a bit of a problem with big dumb monsters with resistances. Case in point, Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon. We can't do a whole lot to it, and most of our guys are in defense mode anyway. We're going to start with Galaxy Worm, getting Galaxy Worm going into Dante. Then we're going to go ahead and mill 3 set 1 and pass it back. Not ideal, especially since we didn't mill anything relevant. He's going to Chaos Form into a Chaos Max, do 3,000 points of damage to us. We'll float this Dante back into a Libic, I guess, and he'll pass it back. At end step, we'll Cosmic Cycle in the set card, which is a Quaking. Well, that's pretty good news for us. We're going to start by activating Tour Guide to the Underworld's effect, getting ourselves a Fiendish Rhino Warrior, going into a Dante, using Dante's effect, milling, of course, the Fiendish Rhino Warrior. We hit a Graph as well as the Fiendish, so we'll go ahead and mill a Farfa and a Skarm. We'll tribute for a Degoran, then go into Beatrice, that just destroys the Skarm, and we'll pass it back. At end step, we'll go ahead and get Seer so we can start that loop as well. So I don't really care about a guy who doesn't pierce, just because I'll be able to use Beatrice's effect. He goes into Red Eyes, but we can destroy that with Ghost Ogre, and now we just have to deal with 2 3,000 attack monsters that don't do a whole lot of anything else. When we detach the Farfa, we're going to go ahead and use the Dante effect, use every effect we possibly can, and then at end step, since our Beatrice is dead and we're in purple Dante, we'll go ahead and use Seer to draw a card and get back our normal Dante. We're going to banish the Interrupted Kaiju Slumber that we milled in order to get ourselves another Kaiju and then pass it back. Now we have a lot of tools here. He's going to attack over our purple Dante, which gets the last card out of his hand, then attack over our Graph to get us a Skarm. At that point, he's going to pass it back, I think not wanting to give us the Skarm search. We just keep drawing hand traps, but it's not that big of a deal. We're going to go into Breaksword to destroy Dante and the Kaiju. This allows us to Kaiju his other monsters, should we so choose, but because it doesn't, stop Breaksword from getting run over, I figure the difference between, having 300 or 400 more life points isn't that big of a deal. When he goes to use the Rocket effect, I will Ash Blossom. Since I've drawn into so many hand traps, I might as well use them. He'll go ahead and attack over the Phantom Knights of Breaksword, but I'm not particularly concerned, especially after I get this Skarm search off. Now we have a Rubik in our hands, so we can normal summon the Seer, use Rubik's effect to get ourselves a copy of Virgil. Then we'll use Seer to get back Dante. You may have seen this play before. We will go ahead and shuffle that sucker back into the deck, use Barbar's effect to burn him for 900, and now we're actually in pretty firm control of this game, especially since the last card in his hand is a bit of a brick. We're going to pass it back. Our opponent's going to draw into a copy of a card that we can Ghost Ogre, thankfully, and I think that's just about the end of the game. So a couple of very interesting games against kind of wonky decks that have a shockingly decent BA matchup, but we still come out on top because if there's one thing BA does, it's resist cheese. Unfortunately, our opponent is now playing a good deck. They're playing ABC True Draco, and we are going second. Thankfully, we have the tools to do it. This Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit is going to come in mighty handy, although the Maxi might not. One of the many benefits to playing so many flexible slots in this deck. Our opponent's going to start by terraforming out a Union Hanger, getting themselves a C, setting the Union Hanger, and then trying to use its effect, which of course we have to Ghost Ogre so we don't have to stare down an ABC, one of the best cards against us. They'll then destroy one of the 2 Ash Blossoms in their hand to get a trap setting up for the Masterpiece and pass it back. We're going to normal Galaxy Worm. Unfortunately, that gets ashed, which turns off all of our Burning Abyss guys, except we have Foolish Burial, so we can send Libic to get ourselves the Skarm out of hand. They're going to chain the True Draco Apocalypse to the Dante Summon, which means they can destroy Dante for free. That's going to get the Libic back to our hand, but thankfully the Skarm goes off, getting us a Tour Guide to the Underworld. So we might still be in it. Our opponent's going to destroy their set card with a Draconic Diagram to get themselves a copy of True King's Return, then pass it back. This is a little threatening, but Beatrice sending an Interrupted Kaiju Slumber is still a pretty good out, so we'll make Dante with 2 special summoned monsters to bait the Masterpiece activation. It does work, which means that we're going to be able to get this Skarm back to our hand, then use the Tour Guide for our normal summon to make a second Dante, sending the Fiendish Rhino Warrior, getting ourselves a Seer Engraved to set that loop up, and then making a Beatrice. We'll pass it back. I mean, attacking into Beatrice isn't that scary, TBH. Our opponent's going to start by using Draconic Diagram to get a second trap, and that's a little frightening, just trying to set up as many monster destruction effects as possible. At end step, we're going to mill a copy of Interrupted Kaiju Slumber, which in standby is going to prompt him to use the effect of Masterpiece to destroy the only card on our side of the field. We'll chain to send a Calcab. I just want to see if I can bounce one of those traps, but they're both chainable. Not ideal. Regardless, we're going to go into Purple Dante, which is excellent, and we'll banish for a GamCL. Now, I know that he has a copy of True King's Return set, and I really don't want him to be able to, like, have the attack of my monsters through some wonky shenanigan, like bringing a guy back and destroying it. So I'm going to summon this Dante in defense mode so we don't accidentally get blown out. He's going to go ahead and special summon this card back, which is great for us because it gives us a use for Maxi. He's going to use True King's Return, but thankfully we've drawn into a Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. We'll also use the effect of Purple Dante in order to get ourselves a draw. We draw into Ash Blossom of all things, and now we're kind of in full control of this duel. We have all the tools we need to win the game. We'll go ahead and special Barbar, special Farfa. I mean, just really doing as much damage to face as we possibly can. We'll do 17, 14, 16, 1,000, and now we have to find a cute way to style on him. So at end step, we're going to go ahead and get a BA to our hand. Of course, we can always send it at instant speed. Our opponent's going to pass it back. Just an unfortunate set of draws from him. We'll start by attacking for 14. Then in main phase 2, we'll normal summon Ghost Ogre, destroying all of our BAs, triggering Barbar's effect. Afterwards, of course, we will use Dante's effect to send a copy of Barbar to grave, then use Ghost Ogre's on board effect to destroy the Dante and kill him. So we're back with the deck. Still feels good, but I've got to admit, compared to all the ridiculous stuff you can be doing in this format, this build of Burning Abyss just feels a little too fair. Now, when building this deck, you have a lot of options. I'm using the flex space to play cards like BLS, but they could just as easily be cards like Anti-Spell Fragrance or Mistake, which I think I'd recommend. Additionally, the unbelievable power of Link monsters is just so high right now that I think you'd be a fool not to run Scapegoat and Gofu in this as well. I mean, you're already on so many Fiendish Rhino that I don't think there's a giant chance of accidentally losing your whole board, and Borreload is just so damn strong. We could take out a majority of these XYZ monsters for things like Mrs. Radiant, Link Spiders, Proxy Dragon, Borreload, and, I mean, even a Firewall Dragon. Now, regardless, this discussion should illustrate to you the myriad of different ways you can play Burning Abyss. I mean, its greatest strength is its flexibility, and now that it's proven to be good enough to compete, the world of deck building is your oyster. So, that's that. If you want a little bit of a more in-depth look at Burning Abyss, feel free to check out the article I wrote on YGO Pro Deck, links in the description. If you want to see me play the decks I make on this show on stream, I'm on twitch.tv/monobluetron every Tuesday and Thursday from 10 to midnight Eastern Standard Time, links in the description again. And if you have a certain deck or archetype you want to see me play, let me know in the comments and I'll do my best. Otherwise, I'll see you Wednesday.